The era of a mass society and age of progress in Europe began in 1871 with the establishment of the German Empire and of the Third French Republic. At this time, there was a move away from conflicts within Europe. This era would end in 1914 when the peace was disrupted by the beginning of the First World War.
During this time, developments grew at different speeds in Western and Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe was still agriculture-based and trapped in the past. Western Europe advanced quickly as they experienced a second industrial revolution. This involved the invention of steel, chemical developments, an increase in the petroleum and gasoline industry, and the introduction of electricity, which is perhaps the most significant development that led to a mass change in the lifestyle in Europe. Having electricity meant that people could stay up after the sun went down, and thus a new nightlife began.
People also had more time for socializing and throwing parties after reforms were made in the working industries. The ideal middle-class family dynamic became the husband as the breadwinner while the wives stayed at home or performed domestic-focused jobs such as teachers or phone operators. Wages increased and the working hours per day decreased, giving families more disposable income and time, which led to an increase in the standard of living in Western Europe. The middle class measured their success by the amount of material goods in their possession, so they were a big contributor to the mass consumerism and making the markets grow.
Products were produced quicker, cheaper, and more efficiently, which meant they could be distributed to more people, leading to a need for markets and consumer culture. Mass consumerism and mass leisure led to the development of advertisements through radio, newspaper, or catalogs. There was a rise in sports betting and the creation of parks and theaters and more music being produced for the public, not just composed for the rich and elite to hear.
Aside from the standard of living and mass consumerism, there was also a change of mindset during this time period. Intellectuals abandoned the idea of human improvement from the Renaissance and Age of Enlightenment, and rather believed that some are born superior to others and those people should control society. There was also a rise of agnosticism, which meant people weren't sure if God exists or not, and it wasn't up to them to make that judgment.
Art also changed during this period. Realism began to fade away because photographic film was invented. The art styles of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism started to grow in popularity along with abstract art. Painters no longer expressed meaning in their art that could be understood by anyone with the intellectual resources to appreciate it, such as a biblical reference or an event, but rather started making art for themselves. The meaning was clear to the artist, but viewers could only speculate and interpret their own emotions and thoughts captured in the art.
In the political sense, governments also changed during this time period. They made a greater effort to appeal to the people by implementing policies such as greater suffrage. They also paved the way for the era of imperialism by seeking out new colonies in Africa and Asia to add to their development of society and industrial wealth. This was largely successful for Europe, but the competition created rivalries between the countries. Conflict was mostly avoided due to Bismarck's diplomacy, but eventually led to the creation of two allied groups that would fight against each other in the Great War.
The age of progress in mass society was a time of optimism as the people believed they were on the cusp of a perfect society. There was a focus on happiness, leisure, and family, which was emphasized in the middle and upper classes and increasing in the lower classes too, as living standards continued to rise.